Welcome to Skills for Life, a podcast about high-demand jobs that are shaping future opportunities. This show is brought to you by the North Shore Schools Foundation. I'm Dorrian, your host and a North Shore mom. Let's get started. Today on the show, I am speaking with Olivia Banks. She is a senior in the assurance practice for Ernst Young. Did I get that right, Olivia?
You sure did. Thanks for having me, Kira.
Thanks for being with me. It took us a minute to figure out how I was going to say that, so I'm really impressed with myself. So this kind of leads me to my first question, which is, what did I just say? What does that mean?
Yeah, great question. So I work for Ernst Young. It is one of the big four accounting firms. And Ernst Young has several service lines, including assurance, tax, and we have a pretty large consulting practice as well. So our assurance practice focuses on protecting the capital markets. So in a simple, whittled down sense, we go through the financial statements of larger companies before they're released to the public and make sure that all of the numbers are right and none of the executives there's no funny business happening with the numbers.
You keep them honest.
Keeping them honest, doing our best.
I love it. What an important, extremely important job. So thank you for doing what you do. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. What's your day-to-day? I assume you're good with numbers. There must be something in there about math.
A little bit of math, yeah. It's a lot more like organizing numbers, though. So accounting is whittled down to debits and credits, and then the end product of these financial statements. So it's more not necessarily, calculus, but how do numbers fit together to paint an accurate financial picture.
Wow. Okay. So tell me a little bit about how you got here, because you're fairly fresh in your career path, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm a couple years in now, but fairly fresh.
I love it. So tell me how you got there.
So I graduated Woodinville High School in 2016. The oldest in my family. I've got two younger brothers. And then I went to Gonzaga University. And my brothers actually followed me there. I've got a senior brother and a freshman brother there now. Shout out to Hunter and Mason. And my time at Gonzaga, I was able to study abroad in Florence. And I double majored in our accounting and finance program. So Bachelor of Administration. And I minored in entrepreneurial leadership, which was a result of this program called the Hogan program at Gonzaga, where it takes 25 students each year. And you go through these classes and everyone's highly motivated, working on all sorts of different entrepreneurial projects. And that results in a pretty cool minor.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was a great experience, learned a lot, was able to enter into several business competitions with the program, and really was empowering as far as getting to know the business world and being able to present in front of executives with my own business ideas as a 18, 19, 20-something-year-old.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, backing up a little bit, I didn't really know what I want to major in. Going into Gonzaga, I knew I really liked business. Actually, I come from a family business and I would work there in the summers. We fly seaplanes. I don't know if you've heard of Kenmore Air, but we've been around since 1946.
Wow.
So I used to work there in the summers and I worked on the line crew, washing airplanes. I was the only girl out there one summer, getting up early, starting the airplanes in the morning, getting them warmed up for the pilots. And then the next summer, I decided I want to do something different. So I worked in customer service, answering the phones, checking in passengers. And then I also was an accounting intern kind of half the time. I split between, I checked customers in the morning and the afternoons, I'd go help accounting. And when I was up there, I just noticed how much accounting does for the business. And I worked under our current CFO, and she's just this brilliantly smart lady and just knew everything that was going on all the time. I mean, she had to go talk to pilots, she had to go talk to dispatch and our parts department and our line crew, and everything funneled through her. And then she produced financial statements that tracked how the business was doing, that then my dad would go observe and make strategic decisions based off the business. And so learning from her, knowing I liked business and I like a challenge, was able to just know that that's the track I wanted to go down. So that's how I initially decided to be an accounting major. just because of how important it was people call accounting the language of business. And the more I get into this field, the more I see that to be true. Or understanding the numbers, you're able to understand kind of bigger picture how a business operates and therefore be more informed in making strategic decisions going forward.
Wow, that is so cool. I've never really, as a non-numbers gal, I've never really thought about it that way, but that is so true. So I'm curious, you are, as we talked about, relatively new in the field itself. How do you see it transforming, changing over the next few years, 5 to 10, let's say, as our students come into the workplace? Do you see technology influencing this field? Any other things that are starting to impact it?
Yeah, absolutely. This field is changing so much so quickly. And the smarter we're getting with developing data-driven solutions, the more interesting our work gets. So instead of, if you think about old school auditing, it's a lot of like looking at a population, say, of like accounts payable. So like bills you owe, and then making random selections and then going and testing those selections and seeing like, were the bills actually paid? And now what we can do is go and use data to create analytics and to almost do like reasonable checks for accounts that we deem to be lower risk, which is just so much more interesting. And we're able to just test better, and clients are happier with us because we're getting things done faster. We're bugging their people less. And it's a more fulfilling, interesting job for us because we get to see more and do more and learn about the business from analyzing their data. And as far as where the industry is going, I think that facts right now are hard to find. It just macro in the world, it's hard to know which information to trust. And we are known as a trusted business advisor who produces facts. And that's incredibly important right now.
Wow. Yeah, that's super, super important to know. Like, if I see that they're saying these numbers are right, then these numbers are right. We can trust them.
Yeah. And going forward, I think that's going to be implemented in all sorts of different ways. We're talking about ESG. How do you measure environmental social governance, like carbon emissions? How do we trust those numbers? And we're expanding as a practice right now to start to look into that. And how can we serve our clients on a broader scale and not just financially? And I'm really excited for what role that we're going to play in making the world a better place holistically.
That is so cool. I love that. I guess I never really thought about it like that the work that you're doing is truly contributing to making the world better. And how cool for our students who maybe enjoy this kind of numbers and math and organizational skills, combining that with a desire to do good in the world. Like, what an amazing opportunity for them. So tell me, if someone wanted to go down this path, what do you think they should be thinking about for next steps after high school? Are there particular degrees that would be important to get that would make them more desirable or hireable? What kind of skills should they be developing? And sorry, this is a big question, but what can they be doing now when they're in high school to set them up for success? Which classes should they be taking? Where should they be volunteering? Like, give us a little bit of a roadmap, if you have one, that our students could consider.
As far as a roadmap, I'll start with adding on to why I chose this career path. So after I was able to understand how important accounting was and wanted to be a part of it, I started recruiting with some of the bigger firms. And the recruiting process was honestly really fun. I never in a million years thought that I was going to be an accountant. I'm a pretty extroverted, social, like to be in front of people person. And whenever I introduced myself and said that I'm an accounting major, some people would be like, really? You? Like, don't you want to do something a little more fun than that? But then recruiting with some of these bigger firms, I was able to meet some of the professionals and realize that they were really fun too. And I am, not just doing accounting, but yesterday I interviewed someone for our Entrepreneur of the Year program. And I'm involved in EY Connect Day, where we plan volunteering events in different schools. And I'm on the EY soccer team and the EY softball team. And yes, we're accountants, but we're accountants that have a lot of fun. So I think that's good to know. And then transitioning from college to post-college is a really hard shift for a lot of people. Just, not knowing where you're going to live and like what your first job is going to be like. And navigating a completely new lifestyle is really challenging. And what's awesome about these big four firms is that you have a cohort of people your age who are also like-minded, motivated people who are kind of in it with you. And you want to learn together and grow together. And I mean, those people that I started with a couple of years ago, I still work with every day, and they're some of my best friends. And that's what really makes this career unique, because you have that community that just keeps growing and you get to learn from each other. As far as classes and how to prepare in high school, I think what I did was just, I raised my hand a lot and I said yes to things that, maybe wasn't interested. I mean, I was involved in some of the sports teams and stuff, but then also liked going to Mr. Woodinville. I don't know if they still do that anymore. And some of like the band concerts, and just, I think being involved and being curious about other people will be attractive to any recruiter. Just doing stuff, I guess, to put it blankly. I think COVID, just thinking about my brothers, COVID was really tough because there wasn't a lot of opportunity to do stuff. And then now it seems like opportunities are opening up where, you can raise your hand and say yes to things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be volunteering or changing the world as a high schooler, but going out and making new friends or being a part of an ultimate Frisbee team or whatever it is. I just think doing stuff and getting to interact with the world in different ways is really important for personal development. And it's attractive from a recruiting perspective too, knowing that someone's well-versed and can communicate with different folks from all sorts of different backgrounds. That's impressive.
Wow, that is really well said. And I'm not sure I've had a guest put it like that before. And I think that's really important what you just shared. Thank you. What about particular degrees? If people are going on to higher education, are there specific degrees that are going to help them be prepared for this role better than others? And if someone isn't interested in pursuing higher education, is there a way for them to still work at EY or be involved in the amazing work that you're doing without having that degree?
Yeah, I am not familiar with any client-serving folks that don't have at least bachelor's degrees. However, I know there's all sorts of executive assistants who do really great work, who I'm not sure if they took the higher education path. But most of the people I work with have master's degrees. They went and got their fifth year because so I'm a CPA. In order to sit for the CPA exams, you have to have, I think if it's semesters, it's 150 credit hours in the state of Washington, or if it's quarters, it's 225. So a lot of the times people have to do a fifth year anyway to get those credits. So people end up just getting their master's.
And again, are there specific degrees, like it's better to get, I'm going to get this all wrong because I know nothing about these degrees, but is it better to get an accounting degree versus like some other kind of mathematical specialty degree? Anything that you would recommend?
Yeah, for our assurance and tax practices, I believe you have to have an accounting degree or at least an accounting master's, just because we are working with numbers all the time and you have to know how the debits and credits fit together, and you need a stamp of approval from a university in order to get that. However, our consulting practices, I was talking to a couple of people last week who are in people advisory services. I didn't even know this existed, but I was on a panel with University of Idaho students and we were doing a recruiting thing with some scholarship program over there. And the gal I was sitting next to worked in, people advisory services, and her job was to basically facilitate mergers and acquisitions for people integration, which I didn't even know that existed in our practice. And I'm sitting next to this really inspiring gal who's about my age, learning about just a totally different thing that our company does. And then the person sitting on the other side of her on this panel developed this Ernst Young charitable foundation, and she works in all sorts of nonprofits. It's just crazy how big our company is. We have just about 400,000 people in over 150 countries worldwide.
Wow.
And so it's just never ending. I think, once it's hard to get a job with EY, and then once you're here, you can have a million different careers at the same company doing all sorts of different work, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's super special to find a home for your work life. I mean, that doesn't really seem to exist anymore. So I love that's what part of what they're doing, and that they're doing such good work in the world.
Yeah, and we're lucky too. I mean, they really prioritize work-life balance. Like, one of my criteria in my performance reviews is how well am I taking care of myself? Which is different. I mean, but I guess when you get in an environment where people are super highly motivated, competitive, intellectually curious, you have to have kind of check-ins and be like, okay, like, are you feeling good about yourself? Are you taking care of your body? Or are you taking your vacation? We have unlimited paid time off, which is amazing. We work really hard, and then we get to go take a couple of weeks off when we want to. And that's also really unique and appealing for this career.
I love it. So final question for you. I ask all my guests, if you could look at your 18-year-old self, give her a piece of advice, some wisdom for students and parents who might be listening, what would you say?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I'm going to have to give credit to the usual suspects at Woodinville Rotary. Shout out to Irv DeSmit, Terry Jarvis, Eric Greenwood, John Hughes. Their motto for the town of Grace is having fun is serious business. And I think that's so important to remember. If you're not having fun, then maybe it's time to reevaluate. And I think as an 18-year-old, I was taking life pretty seriously. And it's important to remind myself that having fun is serious business. And work should be fun. I mean, I would come to work every day having fun, even though I'm an accountant, which is bewildering to a lot of people.
That's awesome, Olivia. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing just your wisdom and giving our students and our parents a sense of, what that path might look like, and also giving us a peek into EY, because I think a lot of us have heard of Ernst Young. I certainly had, but I didn't really know what it looked like on the inside like that. What a special environment to be a part of. So thank you for sharing all of that with our listeners.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kira, and love the North Shore Schools Foundation. They did a ton for me and my family growing up. So always happy to be a resource to anyone in the community.
We hope you'll join us again, and remember to hit subscribe to be notified about upcoming episodes. Join the conversation on our Facebook page, Build Skills for Life. That's Build Skills, the number 4, and then the word life. Are you interested in advertising as a sponsor for this podcast? Contact us at podcast@nsdfoundation.org. To learn more about the North Shore Schools Foundation, visit us at northshoreschoolsfoundation.org. Thanks for listening.